Hello and welcome back to the Data Privacy Lawyer. Today's review, we're going to be looking at an AI policy offered by Taylor and Francis. So I'm just going to quickly take a look at what it is that they do. The reason why I thought it was really important to do a review of this organization is this is the first time I am putting their URL into Google. So we've been presented with this cookie banner, which I was very excited to see. And I love that we have the opportunity to exercise our more choices. I think it's interesting that we only have an accept all button and not a reject all button. Whatever the case may be, I'm going to exercise my choices and confirm. And then after this, I want to take a look at what it is they do before I review the AI policy. So let's go to, let's take a look at this. I'm not familiar with Taylor and Francis or Informa Business. So let's see our company. Taylor and Francis is one of the world's leading academic publishers. Oh, interesting. So I guess they're a publishing company. So that's very unique that they have an AI policy. I presume that there's going to be an overlap between, what's being published in the future, given that we have AI now that's really good at, proofreading and running scripts through AI tools and things like that. We've published over 180,000 book titles. Okay, interesting. Let's go back to the AI policy. So I thought this would be a really good case study. And now I think it's an even better case study because there is an overlap between artificial intelligence and then intellectual property. And I presume that the reason Taylor and Francis has issued this policy is because there's been a lot of discussion, and actually there are ongoing investigations related to copyright and trademark infringements and the use of artificial intelligence. So I feel like this organization had the wherewithal or they've anticipated in the future that because of their business model, the fact that they're publishers, if AI is going to be used, which it probably is going to be used, that in the future there may be some implications for a publisher and how books are being published in the future and how companies and individuals are using AI tools. Now, I don't know if they're using them internally or if this policy is for the authors that they publish, right? So we can see here, Taylor and Francis is offering guidance to authors, which I just said, editors and reviewers on the use of such tools which may evolve given the swift development of the AI field. So even without reading this, I knew why they had this AI policy. I'm going to see when it was last updated. Okay, not clear. Now, the reason this is really important is because most organizations now are either thinking of or already using some type of AI tool in some capacity. Most artificial intelligence at this stage is going to process some personal data in some capacity. Now, it's really important for companies, again, from a transparency perspective, to be transparent to their consumers about how their AI tool may process personal data. I don't know if Taylor and Francis is offering an AI tool or they're just talking in general to the authors, editors, and reviewers who may use AI because it implicates Taylor and Francis, who is subsequently the publisher. Now, if you live in the United States, you know that the United States is a very litigious country. If any of the authors, editors, and reviewers have implications when it pertains to intellectual property, and Taylor and Francis publishes, their work, whether it's a book or article, there may be repercussions for Taylor and Francis if they don't provide insight about how artificial intelligence could be used. Now, I don't know how the authors or editors are going to use artificial intelligence. If the author is putting their name into some type of AI tool, or if there's character development that could implicate, copyrighted works or something like that, Taylor and Francis, as far as I'm concerned, is trying to cover themselves on what is acceptable for their authors and editors when it comes to their relationship with them as a publisher. Okay. While generative AI has immense capabilities to enhance creativity for authors, there are certain risks associated with current generation of generative AI tools. Generative AI tools are of a statistical nature, and as such can introduce inaccuracies, falsities, or bias. Now, this is really important, which can be hard to detect, verify, and correct. Now, I think it's really useful to understand the overlap between artificial intelligence, potential bias, all of the host of potential risks when using artificial intelligence. I'm not intimately familiar with what authors do when they are drafting their works, but there is a potential that if any personal data is being used, let's say, for instance, an author is creating an autobiography about their own life, and they are discussing, individuals in their life that have impacted, the autobiography itself. They're giving details about this person's personal data, like their name, specific dates when things have happened. This is just for an example. it's good for the authors to be made aware of what type of risks are inherent with using AI. I think going forward, we're going to see more of these policies for industries that overlap with the use of personal data and obligations that a publisher like Taylor and Francis may have, given that their authors and editors are using artificial intelligence. Generative AI providers may reuse the input or output data from user interactions, and sometimes this input or output data is personal data. So, providing some guidance to any users of the tool is going to be a necessary component for an organization when it comes to their own compliance program. Because I'm sure that when authors or editors are submitting works to Taylor and Francis, if it contains personal data, essentially Taylor and Francis is participating in something that is known as processing personal data. And that's why this guidance is going to be very helpful when you're interacting with your potential customers. I presume that authors would be a customer of Taylor and Francis because Taylor and Francis assist the author in publishing their works. So let's take a look at this. Authors are accountable for the originality, validity, and integrity of the content of their submissions. This is very, very important. And we talked a little bit about content. If an author is publishing an autobiography and has inserted information that could identify an individual, Taylor and Francis is essentially saying that the authors are accountable for that information and the originality. This is very important. In choosing to use generative AI tools, journal authors are expected to do so responsibly and in accordance with our journal editorial policies on authorship and principles of publishing ethics. I want to see if there's any insight related to personal. Okay, interesting. Taylor and Francis currently does not permit the use of generative AI in the creation and manipulation of images. Again, an image, depending if it identifies an individual, constitutes personal data. And figures. Now, I'm not sure what constitutes figures in the publishing world, but if this is something to do with like how a person looks, like 3D, if it potentially identifies an individual, then there could be privacy implications to that as well. Or original research data for use in our publications. So they actually don't permit the use of generative AI. The term image and figure, so I love that they've given a definition, includes pictures, charts, data tables, medical imagery, snippets of images, computer code, and formulas. Okay, good. Use of manuscripts in generative AI systems may give rise to risks around confidentiality, infringement of proprietary rights, and data and other risks. Therefore, editors must not upload unpublished manuscripts, including any associated files, images, or information into generative AI tools. Now, I think in the future, there's going to need to be some nuance to this approach and stance. Essentially, Taylor and Francis is trying to protect themselves from any potential litigation arising from potentially being associated with any issues with using artificial intelligence. But I think going forward, there's going to be a lot of changes to how generative AI is trained and in the usage of artificial intelligence in industries like publishing, because I think it's a bit burdensome to just completely flat out disallow artificial intelligence, but it's still useful to review what companies' approaches are to the use of artificial intelligence and how they are trying to protect the organization from a data protection standpoint by completely just not allowing manuscripts or associated files to be uploaded into their system. So I hope you enjoyed this review. There's so much cross-sectional overview or oversight associated with AI and data protection. Almost every single action that an organization conducts has some sort of personal data implication, which is why I thought that it was really good to review this AI policy. If you're thinking about drafting an AI policy or a notice on how your company uses artificial intelligence, take a look at my description below and I'll see you in another video.